What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lithography. Kramzer here with Jason and Joe, and we are capping off the aughts with our favorite albums of 2009. I brought you into this decade. I will see you out. These little recap intros are getting harder to do. There's just not anything monumental really happening, but I feel like there was a big year for pop music. I was so sick of like the major stuff going on, talking like Black Eyed Peas, Beyonce had a bunch of hits, and Lady Gaga was huge, but especially like that Black Eyed Peas song, I Got a Feeling. I feel like I just heard that everywhere around this time, was so sick of it. Just Dance by Lady Gaga takes 22 weeks to get to the top Billboard 100, second longest trek to the top since Creed's Arms Wide Open, which I had no idea ever got that high on the charts. Pretty big year for touring notes. Madonna extends her massive Sticky and Sweet tour. Elton John and Billy Joel do 24 sellouts and make like a ton of money and uniquely do it so everything is in a 360-degree view. Michael Jackson tours his This Is It. Unfortunately, he would pass during this year as well. And kind of cool, Paul McCartney has a 3-night stand at the opening of Citi Field. So I don't know, with the Beatles and the Mets, I don't know what's going on, but they were at Shea before and now they're at Citi Field, or he's at Citi Field. Also got Susan Boyle using our sovereign state YouTube to launch her stardom when I Dream a Dream. Just everyone loses their mind over it, and her album does so well it actually finishes in the top 10 billboards. So the power of YouTube is alive and well here. Here's some of the best-selling records. We've got Fearless by Taylor Swift, I Dreamed a Dream by Susan Boyle, number ones, Michael Jackson, The Fame, Lady Gaga, and My Christmas by Andrea Bocelli. Also got some of the top songs. We've got Single Ladies by Beyonce, Just Dance, Lady Gaga, My Life Would Suck Without You, Kelly Clarkson, Crack a Bottle with Eminem featuring Dr. Dre and 50 Cent, and Right Round by Florida featuring Kesha. Some of these pops name I didn't know they went as far back as 2009, like Kesha, and I didn't know that these people were that old, but kind of cool. As far as 2009 and our arena of music, I thought it was a pretty decent year. I've got good 5 stars at the top. I don't have as long of a list of like 4.5s and 4s as I do. So I think comparatively it's towards the bottom of the odds, maybe second worst other than 2000. So I kind of feel like 2000 and 2009 going in and out of the decade. Not the best years, but nothing really to complain about. A lot of like the heavy hitters from the aughts, I think like Jason will also talk about, just like don't put out an album here. So there's good stuff, but it's just kind of odd and not really it's not like the B team or anything coming in with these good records, but just not the usual big guns. So what do you guys got for 2009?
Well, Kramzer, you spoke about the heavy hitters of the decade not putting out anything. That's because all the good stuff was put out by the legacy acts, at least on my list. I have a bunch of like bands that sort of either reformed or had kind of gone away for a while, coming back with good albums. A fair amount of 4 stars on this one. Pearl Jam's Backspacer, Dave Matthews Band with Big Whiskey and the Grugex King. Alice in Chains comes back, reforms, puts out Black Is Way to Blue, which I like a lot, but didn't quite make the top of the list. And Doves, just missing out for the 4th consecutive album with Kingdom of Rust, which might be their best one, but it doesn't quite crack my list. On my list, I got a couple standard Joe bands. I got Muse with The Resistance, clocking in my top 5, kind of as big and sci-fi as you can get. Like they put a symphony on the album. He composed a symphony. So standard Joe kind of music from them. Maybe my favorite drumming of the whole decade. Just fantastic work. Also making a return to my list for the first time in a while, I got AFI with Crash Love. kind of their homage to like 80s pop. Really kind of sound like The Cure on a couple songs, but some shredding guitars from Jade Puget, very underrated guitarist. Also on my list, Jason thought this was going to be my number one, and he's not far off. Them Crooked Vultures. He put together Dave Grohl, Josh Homme, and John Paul Jones. Obviously, I'm going to put that on my list. Really great album. It sounds maybe a little too much like Queens of the Stone Age. Just doesn't quite go off in like crazy Zeppelin-y directions enough, but it's still really good. It's, the best Queens of the Stone Age album in a while. Top two, however, this was a tough one. I had this one at the top, but I had to dock it a couple points because it is an EP. Lady Gaga, The Fame Monster, just such a good album. She really had just completely changed pop in 2008, brought in the European EDM, the four on the floor beat came back with her. But The Fame, it's interesting because The Fame had all those big hits like Just Dance and Poker Face and everything, but the other half of the album was like sort of No Doubt, kind of like weird, some bubblegummy pop on it. I don't think she quite found her sound yet. She finds it on The Fame Monster. It's really dark, gothic, still a lot of that electronic influence. Speechless, kind of a queen. So like she has a ton of talent. If this was a full album, I think it would have been my number one faux show, but same as I did with Jar of Flies. It's tough to put an album with only like 7 or 8 tracks, 30 minutes. Just feels like there's something missing. So I'm going to go way off the board with my winner, an album or a band I don't think I've mentioned yet. This is their second album, sort of a new genre even for me. Really just charged up the charts lately. The winner's going to be Baroness with Blue Record. Real progressive, kind of sludgy metal. It's like right on the edge of being too much like not screaming, but like roaring, kind of in the Mastodon universe. Both bands are from Georgia. Somehow Georgia just put out all the progressive metal in the United States in the 2000s between Mastodon, Baroness, and Kalisa. Blue Record's just really awesome. It's like right kind of on the edge of being too much, but the dude like yells and screams like a Viking. Like it's this real kind of like heavy metal, but the parts for me are just the incredible guitar work. It's twisty and all over the place. It's a little like Black Sabbath taken to like the nth degree as far as like not even being completely resolving like the choruses and the verses. Like it's just all over the place. It's really cool. Time signatures are all over the place. Really cool riffs and everything. And he doesn't sing too much. Like there's a lot of space on this album. There's a lot of just instrumental, just really powerful, cool sounding stuff. Only in the past year that I really started listening to this one. This was always like, they kind of get a little softer and less screamy as they go on. So this one was always kind of like, do I like this album or is it too much? I don't know, maybe just a reaction to all the indie rock that you guys are throwing at me. I needed a little extreme, little power behind it. So Blue Record, Baroness, a bit of a surprise. I picked it over Mastodon. They had a good album, Crack the Sky, this year, but I think I like Baroness's stuff a little bit more even than Mastodon's. So I'm going to go with it. Blue Record, Baroness, my winner for 2009.
All right. Interesting. I think we should maybe give a little clarity on the EP situation because we allowed the you guys to put Jar of Flies on your list back in the 90s. No one seemed to really take issue with it, which I thought was interesting. I thought someone would say, what the hell? But I know Kram was asking about putting an EP on his list. Basically, we decided it's got to be at least 30 minutes to be included. That's basically just like a short LP. It's kind of in that gray area. Anything less than that, we are not counting. But when they get that long, they're basically albums anyways. So that's where we stand. It's like kind of playing the roles a little loosey-goosey, but whatever. It's our show, so. 2009 for me, kind of how Kram said in the beginning, it's it's weird. It seems like almost like a kind of changing of the guard kind of year. A lot of the bands that were huge for me in the decade are either not putting anything out or kind of starting to hit a little bit of a creative rut. Wilco puts out their Wilco the album this year, which for me, it's a good record. I still like it. I still go back to it pretty often, but it's not on the same level as their previous stuff. It's going to be the first record of theirs not to make my top 5. We got some other names that were pretty much shoo-ins for me missing. John Vanderslice not making it with Romanian Names, which I also think is really good. Hold Time by M. Ward not making my list, which also I think is good, but not top 5 good, just a little bit of a step down for him. So some of the other things that I like a good bit that are missing would be Outer South by Connor Oberst and the Mystic Valley Band, which I think is a little unfairly overlooked. I think it's a pretty solid record. I know some people don't really care for it. He lets like the other guys in the band sing a lot of the songs, but I think it's all pretty good stuff. Meeting of Important People from Pittsburgh with their self-titled album. Really cool, solid record, worth checking out if you like early modish Who stuff or the Kinks kind of mixed with the Shins indie poppiness. A really cool record called Touchdown by Breaks, or as they were sometimes known in the US, Breaks, Breaks, Breaks. Blue Lights on the Runway by Bell X1, True Love's Gutter by Richard Hawley. So the ones that are making my list: Monsters of Folk by Monsters of Folk. It's Jim James, Connor Oberst, and M. Ward all coming together. And it's one of those rare kind of supergroup records that I think lives up to the billing. None of these 3 deliver B material. It's all really good songs. And in fact, I think, you know, some of the tracks here are better than they were putting on their actual records around this time period. It's a little too long, probably. You could cut a few songs maybe, but all the songs are so good, I don't know which ones you would cut. So really solid, good record from them. Then I've got kind of a weird one. It's called Come Back to the Five and Dime, Bobby D by Benji Fari. A really cool record. I lost track of this guy after this record. Apparently he put out a record in 2016 that I'll have to go check out because I haven't heard it yet. But this record's really cool. He kind of channels T-Rex a bit. Definitely got this glammy vibe to it, but it's really kind of weird. He kind of puts that sound in a blender and makes it a little goofy. It's a concept record about Bobby Driscoll, who was a child actor who worked for Disney in the 40s and 50s, who was fired when he was 16 for having too much acne. Then he became a drug addict and died anonymously in New York City. So that's what the record's about. It's really cool. It's kind of weird, but I think it's great. Then I've got Bitte Orca by Dirty Projectors, which I really like a lot. Really a lot of off-kilter kind of rhythms and timings on this. At first, when I first heard it, I thought it was a little off-putting, but once you get used to it, I think it's really, really cool, kind of progressive, interesting guitar stuff, interesting vocals. Really cool record. My runner-up is going to be Album by Girls, which is an awesome record, kind of garage rock, surf rock, doo-wop, girl group type of stuff, punk rock, all thrown in a blender, maybe a little pinch of like 70s AM gold in there as well. And this is what you end up with. It's really cool stuff. But my number 1 is a record by a band that going forward will be a heavy hitter for me. This is their debut record. I've got North Hills by Dawes at the number 1 spot. Really huge band for me. Loved it the second I heard it. Didn't actually hear it until 2010, but we talked in our 2020 video about how there's kind of this scene in LA now and a lot of people working with each other and Blake Mills showing up everywhere and that kind of thing. And for me, Dawes is kind of the epicenter of all of that, even going back to their pre-Dawes band called Simon Dawes, which Blake Mills was the guitarist in. So much of the music that I listen to and love in the 2010s stems from things that I found out about from following Dawes, bands they played with, artists they worked with. They have been given the stamp of approval by so many sort of legends. They've played with John Fogerty, Jackson Browne. They were the backing band for Robbie Robertson on one of his tours. They've backed up Conor Oberst on one of his albums and tours. They're great, great players. Taylor Goldsmith is, I think, one of the great songwriters of the last decade. I just think it's fantastic. I think his songwriting probably gets a little better after this, but this is probably still my favorite record just for how it sounds. So warm, so natural, very relaxed. The harmonies on it are great. Produced by Jonathan Wilson, who's a great artist in his own right. I just love it. I think it's great. If you like that sort of 70s Laurel Canyon folk rock, this is a must listen.
Didn't think Dirty Projectors would be in there. I've never really heard you talk about them too much. I've always liked them, but that album didn't reach the heights. I'm not huge with Dawes. I think they're a little bit just kind of flat for me, but cool. We were surprised to hear it would be Dawes for sure, but we're ready for what's coming. All right, so a couple of albums that I actually thought Jason might mention outside my top 5. I've got Farm by Dinosaur Jr. I think their second album after their little comeback. Is that correct? Yeah. Popular Songs by Yola Tango. An artist that I don't think either of you like at all, Lungs by Florence and the Machine. And then the last spot was really close, Far by Regina Spektor will just miss. The ones that I do have, I also have Album by Girls. And yeah, you described it perfectly. And it's a sound that I think a lot of people are doing kind of around now, that very like hazy, chill wave, Beach Boys-esque meets Jesus and Mary Chain, lo-fi, kind of sweet 60s pop. There's a lot of that going on during this era, but everyone kind of puts their spin on it, and theirs might be the best. But I've also got Actor by St. Vincent, and then I've got Childish Prodigy by Kurt Vile, a name you're probably going to hear quite a lot. If you don't know Kurt Vile, check him out. I've got my runner-up being My Maudlin Career by Camera Obscura, another one that kind of almost has that similar style as Girls, but drastically different, but kind of in the same ballpark, or at least the same sport. But my runaway winner is going to be Merriweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective. Second win for them, second win of the decade as well, subsequently. This one is a pretty big step in a different direction for them. They kind of drop all of their live band feel, not a lot of live drumming, definitely not a lot of guitar, and there's a lot of sampling going on. And you would think that the result of that would be different than it is. It's actually far more focused. It's less experimental. Obviously, their sound is a big experiment always, but the songs are like really tight, even though they're expanding what they're like about at their core, as far as just like what they do as musicians and their art. It really comes down to like what people consider their pop record. And it's really narrow and focused. All of the songs have, like Joe said before, these ones do resolve themselves very nicely. And it comes off as like far more accessible than the other stuff. It doesn't give you those as heavy as like the old weird like spiritual vibes. You know, they always kind of sound like they were their own tribe, especially with like more tribal beats. This one has a much more of just like almost a fun dancey sonic nature to it. And a couple songs on here are among my all-time favorite songs ever. My Girls and Summertime Clothes are just amazing pop gems. They're kind of done with a lot of the experimentation. Like they've done enough experimenting. They know what they want to do. And this one just has like a really clear, precise conscious to it. It's not like as crazy or as wild lyrically either. It's still really creative. I mean, none of this is like a shot at them kind of like selling out at all. It's just got this really interesting, and a lot of it is based on Person Pitch by Panabear, which is one of the artists, and kind of did his own album the year before this or 2 years before, and they kind of just like went with that sound. So they've never had like a direct leader of the band, but maybe now they do. Also vocally, this one doesn't have as much of as like a group collective kind of thing. It's got a more focused like frontman-esque kind of atmosphere to it. But I know Jason at least loves the song My Girls. I was hoping maybe they would get a mention, but Definitely knew it wouldn't get mentioned from Joe, unfortunately. But
I listened to this album, so I assumed you'd pick it. And I didn't mind it. It wasn't bad. 3.5 stars.
yeah, see, that's kind of the beauty of this album is if you don't like Animal Collective or are weary, this is the one to get your foot into the water with, because it's pretty sparkly. It's very fun, but, you know, it also has a lot going on to it. So Merryweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective. Love it. All these songs sound so good live. I saw them a couple of years after they did this album and just fantastic. Will they get another win after this? We will see. But I did have Radiohead and Animal Collective winning a couple times in this decade, but that's it. Guys, any closing thoughts on 2009?
It was a fine decade, and I will mourn it.
I think was a great decade, and I'm excited for the next one because I think that one's almost just as good.
Well, there you have it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Let us know what you think of our picks in the comments and give us yours as well. Check out our social media presence, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in the description below. We will see you next time again to recap the decade. We'll be doing kind of the usual stuff. We'll count down our favorite years, rank our winners, talk about some live albums and probably some other things. Start getting your lists ready. We'll see you next time here on Listography.